No, they're all watching it on. They're all watching it on.
The TV starts now.
That's right.
Yes, down.
Put one down the bottom.
They stay there.
I'm going to put one here.
Well, you know, open things before they open things.
Oh, that's what the one that bloody comes up.
It's not really.
You do have something.
I have a little bit of I do a drink.
But it's just got the whole lot in it.
I'll open the meeting. Declare the meeting open. Welcome those present. A couple of you. In attendance and advise that the meeting will be recorded in accordance with council policy titled Electronic Recording of Council Meeting Policies. Meetings of council to assist in the preparation of minutes and ensure a true and accurate account of debate and discussion at meetings is available. Now up standing for prayers. Prayers tonight will be by Pastor Matt Musgrave. And we'll say the Lord's Prayer after it.
Say a quick prayer. Lord, I just let's pray this night tonight. Ask, Lord, that you just be with the council. Our Father,
who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, those who trespass against us. Lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, power and the glory, forever and ever.
Thanks, Matt. We'll now go on to attendance. We're all here. Obviously, we've had a leave of absence from Councillor Kay, and he will do this.
Mr. Mayor, put in the minutes that Councillor Kay has tendered her resignation.
Thank you.
Mr. Mayor,
Councillor Aldo.
I'd just like to say a few words. I think it should be recorded, and a vote of thanks for 10 years that she spent here. Her heart's been on her sleeve the whole time, and you know, she's worked really hard for the community. Thank her, so thank her personally.
Yep, I've talked to her about coming back and meeting us sometime, and when she feels better, that will happen.
Yeah,
before that will be fine. So there's no apologies because we're all here. Item 2, confirmation of minutes of previous meeting held on the September. Somebody like to move those minutes be present and correct?
So moved, Mr. Mayor.
Thanks, Councillor Olde and Councillor Blizzard second. Any queries on the accuracy of the minutes? None, I'll put the motion. All those in favour?
Aye.
Against? Carried. 3-1-0, 3-2-0. 3-3. Councillor questions without notice. Are there any questions without notice? Councillor Olde.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The community of Edgecombe Beach and Crayfish Creek have raised a matter with us in relation to a block of ground that belongs to Parks as being a fire hazard. I wonder whether we can bring that to Parks' attention to try and do something about that.
Yeah, certainly can. Yep.
Thank you.
Just need to find out exactly where it is, because that'll be we can
It's
actually
against
put
the road, right on that highest point.
Yeah, it's a bit between the two
That's
settlements.
what I thought it would be, yeah.
That's correct.
Any further question without notice? If not, we'll move along to pecuniary interests. I have a pecuniary interest in item 17. No others?
Yes, Mr Mayor.
Sorry, Councillor Ward.
Enclose 18.2.
18.2.
Yeah.
Thank you. The others? None. We've got a motion here to move on 5, 6 and 7. We don't appear to.
Mr Mayor, I may bring to your attention, but when I read through the minutes, item 5 was actually missing.
Yeah, okay, and that's what it normally is, item 5, 6 and 7.
5, 6 and 7.
So we'll have a motion to to accept 5, 6 and 7, and then we go through them like we normally do.
Yes, Mr Mayor.
Thank you. Second, Deputy Mayor, I'll put the motion. All those in favour?
Okay.
Against? Carried. Item 5, just, we know exactly what that is because
It's the workshop itineraries.
okay, and we haven't got those here, have we? Yep.
Well, that's what it normally is, Mr Mayor.
No, that's right too, you're right. And so, does anybody want to bring anything up from the workshops that we've had? We just had the last 2. We haven't got them in front of us, I know, but if there's anything there that anybody wants to... There they are on the,
Mr Mayor.
on the board. Often don't have anything. Something cropped up in the meantime. I think we'll move to Mayor's appointments. Are there any questions on any of those?
Yes, Mr Mayor, I was wondering about number 8.
Forum of rural stakeholders.
Yeah, what's the rural stakeholder?
I'm on, that's a statewide committee with the rural counselling services. That's always held in Launceston. That's about 3 meetings a year where TFGA, Women in Agriculture, Rural Alive and Well, Fonterra, Dairy Tas, and it's more to do with droughts and floods, and if there's any major issues that people have. I'm on there as a local government representative, and so we're able to deal with issues that are bothering communities. It's often about, last time we talked about loans that young farmers can get for new ventures and those type of things. So we're given information about that and, to be able to help people in the community if there's a great need. So that's what it's on.
Okay, thank you.
Quite interesting, and often when we have mayors' workshops, I give an update for all mayors because I'm there as Tasmanian rep for the local government to other mayors just info that I was given.
I was also, asking about number 20, the Rural Clinical School Community Advisory Board. I wondered with that, there's been an idea floated about doing a similar program for teachers from UTAS to come and visit the area to understand our industries before they come back. And I wondered if that structure, if that's an opportunity to carry that over into the teaching, if we can as to try and understand that, or if that forum's a place where that concept might be floated to test.
It wouldn't be a place because this is all to do with the doctors and whatever that are. I didn't actually get to that today because I had 2 other meetings on this afternoon that prevented me from going to it. But this is a meeting that happens about 3 times a year, and it's to do with when the doctors, the year 2 doctors used to come here for a week at a time. That's organised through this group, so it's all to do with rural doctors and nurses and what community can do to help out. So we talk about those type of things. So I understand what you're talking about, but I think we need to do it through university, but it wouldn't be this arm of university, it would be obviously teachers. But
But who's the local coordination point for that program?
Liz
when it happens
Shires.
here?
Liz Shires.
No, when it happens here though.
Oh,
Someone coordinate this
yes.
aspect.
It's been different people, different
Rotary,
years.
I thought.
There's been a number of different people here. Just trying to.
Rotary, wasn't it?
No, Deb does a lot of it through our community services, but Rotary obviously billet them, and they go to Rotary, but they go to a lot of other places as well. But that normally comes through our community services people. But there are different people in the university that's actually done a lot of that work for us. Yeah. Nearly every year it's somebody different.
Okay, thank you.
But it could be done through the teaching as well. Councillor Audley.
Yeah, I'd just like to throw in a positive statement on our health system here. I was told last week that we struggled with having doctors here. We've always had a lot of locums in. I was told last week that we have 7 permanent doctors here now and 1 locum. So that's a real positive for our area. Yeah, I thought I'd pass it on while we're talking about medical.
I can give you an update on that. There's going to be 8 here the week after next.
Oh,
80?
8.
Yeah.
And they've had to hire a room from the doctor's surgery, which is going to be the lounge room, and they're going to use that so many days a week, and one of the doctors is going to be stationed up there. All the bookings will happen at Oka, but they haven't got enough room for the extra doctor, but they've actually talked to the hospital and it's going to operate out of there as well. So
it's good for our community.
No excuse that people needs to go to along the coast anymore, which is great. Much better than what it was a couple of years ago. Councillor Posky, do you have a question?
Yeah, I did. They're a bit slippery each side of me. Can you tell us, give us an overview of number 18, the benches with Jack?
That was with what? Selena come in and want to have a chat. They've got some exciting developments that they're looking at doing, mainly on the West Coast, with mainly tourist ventures that they're looking at, and some of those are confidential, which didn't even tell me what they were, some of them, but they are looking at doing a lot more work with tourism on the West Coast and giving people an experience that the Aboriginal people would have done many, many years ago. So I hope that happens, because it's something we've been talking about for a long time. Is there anything else that we could add to that?
The only thing that I would add to that is that they've got functions plans. They mentioned in the conversation functions planned for Trawl Manor this weekend. So
that's right. They have to.
The Sunday thing that was on out there, that's for cancers. That's up here at the rec room.
That's up at the rec room.
Right.
Yes.
Yeah. It's been transferred to the rec.
Yeah, mainly because it's too wet for people to park.
They're wet this weekend anyway.
Fair enough. Any further questions without notice? If not, we'll move right ahead. No later agenda items. Public questions. I don't intend to read that out tonight, because we've only got 2 people here that I don't think it causes too many issues, concerns. Are there any questions? No questions? 8. Got the letter from Kerry Houston and a reply to that. Number 9, we have 2 notices of motion. Councillor Ives Harris.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Further to the rationale, COVID has shown us a clear example.
You want to move the motion as is there?
Yeah.
Second?
Yeah, second.
Thanks, Councillor Ratner.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. Further to the rationale provided below, COVID has shown us a clear example of the sheer scale and speed at which the global community can tackle a crisis. When we combine political will, business innovation, and public mobilisation. Mr Mayor, we're doing it for a global pandemic, so why aren't we doing it for our planet? I commend the Tasmanian State Liberal Government for showing tremendous leadership on the issue of climate change and their way forward for our great state. They've used an evidence-based approach along with community concerns to address what will be one of the biggest issues over the coming decades for our world. All forms of government are essential in the initial building blocks moving towards a sustainable planet. Now is the time to show unity to help build business confidence along with community certainty. As Johan Rockstream said, the future is not determined, it's in our hands. Mr Mayor, for those reasons, I bring to Circular Council's attention and I call on all other councillors to support it. Thank you.
Do you want to?
Only that I commend Councillor Ives to have the courage to stand up and to bring a topic that needs addressing to the table.
Any further speakers? Councillor Roldo.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I intend to vote against this, and I intend to tell you why. I watched a program the other night that included some very well-known speakers. One was Campbell Newman. He got defeated, but not because of climate change. The bloke that was the leader of the LNC of Western Australia went from having 28 seats or something of that nature to 2. He got put out because of green ideology. And this was part of it. Then there was a senator, whose name just escapes me at the present time, who was a member of the Rudd and Gillard governments from Victoria. He was a minister in those governments, who agreed with Campbell Newman. Is everybody's wanting us to look forward and making these predictions of what's going to happen. If you want to look forward 50 years to find out what you think is going to happen, you need to have a look back what's happened the last 50 years. And all the predictions that these people continue to make and have made in the last 50 years, there has not been one of them come to fruition. Not one. From making predictions by the turn of the century, it'd be an ice age. Never happened. They talk about sea level rise. In the 80s they talked about. Hasn't happened. It's the ideology of some of these people, and they start to infiltrate. Starts in the bureaucracy, in the cities, they all think, and they all forget about who's going to pay. Right? What's going to happen? We're all on about renewable energy, but the renewable energy is still, fossil fuels are still driving the route. They're making the parts because you've got coal and iron ore and zinc, all those sort of things that the green movements all want to shut down. Who's going to fund the health and education when they're out of the system? We see in Germany at the present time, they've gone to total renewables. They are struggling to keep the power on. And there's other European countries in the same boat. We are 1% of the carbon emissions, was a figure that was used the other night. Yet China, in this last 9 months, have built and commissioned 48 coal-fired power stations. 48, and they're still building them. And India will go the same way because it gives them the base load of power. This zero emissions, it will not happen. And if you want to be really cynical of things, the cheapest form of renewable energy to have kept the emissions down was the Franklin Dam. And this same mob doesn't want that either. They just want to shut everything down. Whoever supports, that's your opinion, you're quite entitled to do that. But I've expressed a point of view tonight, and I've been laughed at different times, but I've stood here tonight and I'm standing by my convictions.
Any further speakers? Councillor Bosky, then Councillor Blizzard. Councillor Blizzard,
There's no recommendation that that I was in front of council. I was sitting on the stage. I commend Councillor for raising this motion. Tasmania is already at zero emissions. We're aiming for to better the planet. We're asked to believe the scientists, the eminent scientists around the world from many countries that have put the report together with COVID and now with climate change. There's no different. And I think this support to the government will keep us on track in Tasmania. And the question was raised, who's going to pay? Our youth's going to pay if we don't do something. So looking at the future, I'm trying to, hopefully, we'll be able to decrease that burden on our youth of tomorrow.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Look, I'm supporting the motion. I just hope through this whole process now, when we look forward to the next 30 years as this comes around, that both sides of the argument move towards the middle of it and work some rational way of being able to do it. I believe we've got to move in that direction, but at the same time, it's got to be done in a way that the amount of, as Councillor Oldacre is pointing out, the economics around it are covered off and worked forward rather than just a slash and burn approach, and I believe that's the way it'll go. So I'll be supporting Councillor Ives' motion.
Any further speakers? Deputy Mayor.
Mr. Mayor, I'm biased to support the motion, but at the same time I do concern, they talk about net zero emissions in the government side of things, but if they start putting that back onto industry, how that'll affect industry. And that's my concern in some regards to how industries in several ahead. As far as their legislation on net zero emissions themselves, they're benefiting doing that. We do need to be aware that it can cost industry a lot if we go the full hog and say net zero emissions across the whole community. That's when it becomes a really bad and hard situation to be in.
Any further speakers? I think Councillor Wood, would you want to make comments? Or?
I won't, mate. I think it's all been said. Thank you.
I'll be supporting the motion. I think whenever climate change is talked about, it's talked about in a negative manner. I don't think it ought to be for Tasmania. I think that if anybody's got anything to gain out of climate change, it's going to be Tasmania. We've already seen people coming down here because of the heat and whatever else, and so if it gets a bit hotter, we're probably going to see many more people coming in. We do want more people down here. So, but the other reason is they tell us that zero emissions is already happening in 5 of the last 6 years. So I don't think it's a big issue for us. It's probably more an issue for the mainland, and they can do whatever they wish. So I don't think there's any harm, because I'm a bit like Councillor Oldacre. Over the last years, there's been many different changes in weather patterns, and they will always change, and I guess that they will in the future. So whether they go exactly the way scientists are talking about, I'm not sure, but I think it's still a good idea to keep ahead of the game and do more work on it, so that if it does go the way that a number are talking about it, well, we're in the box seat to work with it. So that's my reasoning for support. Okay, well, we've all had our say pretty well, so I'll put the motion now. All those
point of order, Stephen might like a reply sent to someone.
You can if you like. There's only one spoke against it, but
thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'll just close with, and Councillor Oldacre and Deputy Mayor Berkery raised some very valid points in their discussion, and just to shed some light on the costs, and I think Councillor Bosky hit it on the nail on the head in the fact that what cost do we put on future generations? But on a side note, 2/3 of the total cost is paid by the consumer in any industry, and it's quite scary, particularly me being in primary agriculture. There will be a cost, but we have to be optimistic about it, and the person that's going to eat my beef in future, well, potentially might be 2/3 dearer. So it's something to be optimistic about, but we've all got a role to play. So with that, I hope there's support around the table for the notice of motion.
Thank you. I'll put the motion. All those in favour?
Aye.
Against?
Aye.
Councillor Roldager, fine. Thank you. It's carried. 9-2, Councillor Redland.
I might just read that out if it's okay.
The motion.
Yep. The council put out an expression of interest for the formation of a local committee to look at initiatives that can be achieved at a local level which contribute positively to climate change, and to ask Chill to be involved in this process. Rationale, there are some broad
indicators. Can I just get a second for that?
Second, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you.
There are some broad indicators that as a nation there's never been a better time to look more closely at our actions toward climate change. 3 of these indicators that have stood out to me in the last few weeks are, regardless of our own individual and personal views, the statistics showing the mental health of young people who are concerned about climate change is staggering. Our Premier adopting a net zero target, and the Australian Business Council supporting net zero at national level. While the issue seems too big to deal with on a large scale, there are things we can do locally to make a difference. There are many organisations developing solutions and initiatives which could be applied to our local area, as well as coming up with our own. This is a call to action for people who are interested in this topic and want to make a real difference on the ground. Mr. Mayor, fellow councillors and community members, in the current environment, we are looking at new situations and often old situations with a new context. Sometimes we need to tiptoe and test the waters, and sometimes we need to stride. I would suggest that there are people in our community that feel we need to stride. This is a call for action for them to come forward and to express that interest so we can stride together. At the very least, I think we should ask our youth leaders if they have any ideas about this and to listen to what they think. And importantly, to ask the people to get involved with this via any of our social media channels, emails, or the old-fashioned telephone. As a local said in our recent waste survey, it's not rocket science. Thank you.
Yeah.
Well done.
The old telephone's a bit of an issue because not many of them's got any of those. So
I used to repeat them.
Any further speakers? Councillor
You don't have to stand.
I was pleased. Thanks, Mr. Mayor. I support this motion as well. I'm particularly pleased that Councillor Epplin has put in the mention of Chill and the youth in the area to come forward. Is that along the short of it, as this comes around, there's a lot around this table that will probably be moved on to better places by the time it gets real bad. But the youth of the area are the ones that are going to inherit what's left behind, and their views are important. And our group, by the way, is very positive and a very, very constructive group. So I'm particularly pleased with that aspect. I'll be supporting the motion.
Councillor Aldo.
Mr. Mayor, I rise. I won't be supporting the motion for the reasons that I gave in the previous motion.
Thank you. Anything further? Nothing further. Do you want to close it, anyway? Yeah. I'll put the motion. All those in favour?
Aye.
Against? Aye. Councillor Aldo. Thank you. We'll go down to, we've got no planning items tonight, so we'll go down to 11.1, the cemetery management. Matthew, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Councillors, we recall a discussion at a workshop recently around, we got onto the topic of cemeteries and around a range of issues, particularly requests for burials at some of the council's older cemeteries that haven't had burials in many years, and also how some previous requests have been made around council taking on maintenance responsibility or operational responsibility for cemeteries. And I guess through that discussion, we identified that council has had a sort of a position on how those things are managed, but not necessarily had it put out in the public. So really, this report is just council to publicly affirm what its position is on those matters, so that we've got a publicly stated record. It hasn't really changed any of the positions or operations of council, but it's just confirmed. That'll present the report with the recommendations.
Thank you. We've got a recommendation. Is somebody prepared to move that?
So moved, Mr.
Thanks,
I'll
Councillor
second
Roldan.
Mr. Mayor.
Deputy Mayor, do you want to speak to it, Councillor
No,
Roldan?
no, enough's been said.
Anybody wants to speak for or against the recommendation? If not, I'll put the recommendation. All those in favour?
Aye.
Against? Carried. 12.1, financial report. And I think you're doing that
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. In the absence of the Acting Director of Corporate Services, I present the financial report for month ending the 30th of September. Pleasing to see that we've received one application for first homeowners grant scheme. Council acknowledges that there's 9 in total for the first 3 months of the year, which is fabulous to see. Council's income and expenditure are tracking for budget for the first quarter for 21-22 financial year. To date, 66% of the budgeted income has been received and been collected, and 25% of the expenditure has been expended using our financial model. This gives a surplus from operating activities of just under $6.4 million for the period ending the 30th of September 2021. At the 30th of September, Council holds total assets of $245 million. Of this amount, $18.8 million is represented by cash and cash equivalents held by Council. This amount is forecast to end at Council's budgeted cash position of $11.5 million at the year end once Council's operational and capital commitments are met. Any questions? I will take them on notice.
I wondered, the cash and investments are quite up compared to the previous 2 years, and I think you just answered that then with, is that grant funding that's still to be allocated
that is
through
correct.
the LCR, right?
Yeah, that's correct. Yeah.
Anything further? Ron, defend yourself pretty easily there.
I was working on position strength.
No other questions, comments? Somebody prepared to move the recommendation? Thank you. Councillor Blizzard second. I'll put the recommendation. All those in favour?
Aye.
Against? Carried. Now go down to the Senior Manager report.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Senior Management report is presented for Council's consideration. Based upon workshop discussions, Council management teams identified the Christmas closure periods for the Goldie Street office and the Works and Services depot. You'll note there's some information also in relation to the wheelie bin project that's currently rolling out there. A number of additional rural and urban services have been identified as part of that process. We're working through some of the challenges in relation to the stickers and appreciate the community support in relation to working with us in that space. In relation to community activities, the Breathe, Eat, Move, Relax program is actually working well. The Smithton Community Garden Group has been active, and probably the one that is our shining light or the lighthouse of activities in September is our Charts Festival. The winners are recorded there. From all reports, charts went off very well this year, with a number of the new activities being quite well supported. There was a total of 170 entries across the competition categories, which was very pleasing to see. And for the people who had the opportunity to attend the gallery and the exhibitions there, it was fabulous to see. Youth activities under Chill, Focus Group and 7-Up are all tracking as per the notes there. In relation to the tourism activity, you can clearly see that Tasmania is holding its own in relation to the visitors being recorded at the Stanley Visitor Information Centre. But with border openings and waiting on some advice from the Premier later in the month or later this week or early next week, we'll probably see some of those parameters. Look forward to a positive change. In relation to some further advice there, in relation to some changes around the consumer building and occupational services legislation. There's going to be some authorisation created for certain practitioners to provide advice in relation to no planning approvals being required. Open information bulletin with the correspondence listed for Council's consideration. Happy to take any questions.
Smoking cessation was actually a success, if you like, in out of the programs that's been the same programs that's been held in Tasmania. I went to the final event on that. We were a long way up on the other community with the amount of people that actually were able to kick the habit, which was a really good result. And I got a surprise, I must admit, that these people weren't young people. They were older people that really wanted to give it away and found this program just what they needed to be able to kick the habit. So I thought that was a very positive response for our community that we should be proud about. There's a number of other communities that's had a similar project that's been good, but we were higher up. I can't remember the figure. 40%, yeah, which was really good. So some couldn't make the grade, but the majority did. Councillor Woodward.
It's not a question, Mr Mayor, but I'd just like to say and congratulate those that organise the art around town. There was some fantastic work in our area, and there's some talented young people and older people. And it was just good. I'm not looking at you, Councillor Foster. It was good to go in the Rural Health Building there and see all the talent that's in there. So well done, those that put the hard yards in and doing that work. And it was just great to see. And like I said, we've got some great talent in our community. Thank you.
There's a lot of work that does go in for that to happen. It just doesn't happen. Councillor Foskey.
Yeah, just to add on what Councillor Woody said, I'd also like to thank the community section of the council, and especially the works that have jumped in and helped out so much through the thing. That's just a thank you for them. I've read with interest the Smithton Community Garden and going to Anzac Park. What plan are we working to, and what's come toward before council? I can't recall what the overview of what they're intending to do and what plan are they working to.
Through you, Mr Mayor, that they are yet to prepare a formal plan, but they're currently working with the current resources that are in Anzac Park and improving those. But they actually haven't presented a formal plan for us to. They're working on that.
How does that affect our plan for the area overall?
When we see the plan, Mr Mayor, we will be able to consider that. But at this point in time, they've just been working with the Works and Services team in the horticultural area, supporting the existing investments we've already got in that public space.
Councillor Blizzard.
Thanks, Mr Mayor. I'll draw attention to a couple of letters provided by Circulated Young Leaders, the Chill Group. The first being in relation to some problem with feces or animal feces in Stanley. And through you, Mr Mayor, I'm wondering if the GM can even slide that into a little discussion in a workshop somewhere along the line. And the second one, which is fairly close to where I've been at for quite a while, and I promise I never influenced the discussion in one little way. I suppose I just, in relation to acknowledgement of the country, etc., and the flagpoles for our council, wondering where we're situated or where that's sitting at the moment.
For you, Mr Mayor, I followed up two of my team members in relation to where we're at with that. It's, from my understanding, not far away.
Perfect.
So hopefully before Christmas, that's what I'm working towards.
And they'll be announced to go back to chill once they all.
That's correct, yes.
Thank you.
Councillor Radley.
Yeah, on number 9, we've got some information there from Minister Mackenzie about the telecommunications, and there was a really, I thought, practical aspect of that letter, which has a tech hub where people with telecommunication issues can actually phone in, and I just wondered if that was going to get sent to the library, being one of our main technical points for people to access, and perhaps there was people in the areas that we know don't have great coverage, if they're aware of that, because that might help their access. I think that's really important to include everybody in that new advancement with the telecommunications.
We probably ought to actually put it in on our Facebook as well.
Yeah.
That'd be great to let everybody know that
a lot of
that
people,
service exists.
yeah, and that might get the word through.
Yeah, and
Sorry,
no, that's all right. And I also just wondered if I think there was an announcement for some more funding in a second round regarding black spots and regional connectivity. And I just wanted to check. We had Bass Highway as our number 1 priority to try and get those black spots fixed. And I just wondered if there was anything else that we were planning to put through in the regional connectivity program.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, given that most of that funding is dollar for dollar, we were just promoting the Bass Highway.
I understand that some of the conversations I had, if we're a small council, we may be able to negotiate that it's not 1-to-1.
Right,
so we may be able to say, we don't have that kind of infrastructure money. Could you meet us at a certain way? Or I'm not sure, but that was what I understood.
Certainly have a look at that, yep.
Also, in the CRISP minutes, I noticed there was quite a big increase in the number of hours that the mentor program's been used in September. And I just wondered if we could understand a bit more about why the increase for September, because I think that's a wonderful outcome, and just wanted to say how, it's so pleasing to see that young people are finding it easier to get licences. And apparently the hours matched other programs in the state of the highest use. So I just thought that was excellent progress, and also to see that it's being used. Is there anything else that we could do to support that bottleneck for young people getting licences?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Councillor Etland raised the question last meeting, and sorry I haven't got back to you, Councillor Etland, but the mentors or the driving instructors, that's gone from 4 to 6, as you'll know in the minutes. But also we're seeing a reduction in waiting list as such. So, and obviously the new vehicle too now, which is a added bonus, the Hyundai i30, I think it is. So yeah, I seen it for a class the other day. It looks pretty snazzy.
That's as a district, we should be very grateful to the mentors who are giving up their time to do that. So thank you for bringing that back.
Councillor Plosky.
Mr. Mayor, I noticed in the correspondence that we've got a letter of acknowledgement of the receipt of our acknowledgement of the motion that we put to the Premier, but it didn't answer the questions or the points of the motion. I was wondering if you'd give us an update on when those points will be actioned and replied from the Premier.
Well, the Premier rang me after he got the letter, and he said that they are going to respond to all the items that was in the motion, but also that he was going to come up in a few weeks to see us. I would expect that when he comes up, we'll talk to him about that then. And it's going to be interesting when we get the letter, exactly what happens as well. So, yeah, that's true. There'll be the reply to his reply letter to the motions, one, but also when he comes up, we'll be obviously having to talk to him then.
Thank you for that update.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, now that we've almost settled on those additional questions that we've discussed at the workshop, would you prefer me to pen a letter to the Premier to ask for those questions to be answered as well?
Yeah.
Give him a chance to actually do that.
The more information we give him, the more he's got to consider.
Yeah, I believe so. Gives him a chance.
Yeah, no, we can do that. That's fine.
Well,
Anything else?
Yeah, just one more. I noticed with number 3, we've got the regional land use, and then we've got quite a few energy items as well about energy. And I just wondered if maybe we should take it to a workshop to work out, or if there's anything in the pipeline around the community engagement about that. So with the energy discussion that's happening on a national level, I don't think that we can look at one single project as being yes or no. I think that the resources that exist here are going to attract the industry given other factors, and I just wondered if there's a strategy or if we should workshop something around the community engagement for that.
Yeah, well, we were hopeful after talking to the Minister to try to get the Minister to come out and talk to our community, which he promised to do. Silence has been deafening because we haven't heard nothing from them at all, which is extremely disappointing. And so I think that we're going to have to probably do it ourselves because I don't think it's going to be done from the government. And the unfortunate part of that is that the government that actually put out the forecast of where they wanted to get this renewable energy from, but they just aren't going to talk to our community. So we're probably going to need to do some more work on that. And I think the first thing we need to do is work out what we want to talk to our community about first, and then work out how we're going to go and do it. So yeah, I agree that we need to have another workshop. I don't think it's any point in waiting for the government to do it. It's not going to happen. So we could do that. It's just a matter of when we can fit it in. So we'll have to.
I'll look at the workshop schedule.
Yeah. Anything further? If not, is somebody prepared to move the GM's report? Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Take your pick between Councillor Redland and Councillor Woodward.
Ready, go
Not sure who finished.
Ladies before gentlemen.
You're all hard, Woody. Councillor Woodward. Okay, I'll put the motion. All those in favour?
Aye. Aye.
Against? Carried. We now need a motion 13 for the 3 committees. You'd like to move that, Councillor Woodward, so you missed out last time?
Yes, I will.
Thank you. I'll second that.
Thanks, Deputy Mayor. I'll put the motion. All those in favour?
Aye.
Against? Carried. Circle Head Education and Training Committee for a start. You add to that, Councillor Redland? There's a lot happening, I know.
Yeah, I guess some of the main headlines from the report is that the workforce development plan that Council has diligently allocated resources to and is working with lots of stakeholders in the community bureaucracies on is due to be closing. Some of the major findings from that, not only that there were work shortages currently, but if some of the forecasts for the growth of the businesses in the area, we're going to be facing even more labour shortages and less skills, and that's going to be difficult for all of us. And I think that the best way to get through it is to pull together and try and solve some of these issues together. And that should be released shortly in the next 4 to 6 weeks. We should have that officially launched and out, and the information so that we can act on. And one of the major strengths, we had 70 stakeholders engaged directly with that process. So one of the main strengths of this is to actually understand the complexity of the stakeholders of education and training in Circular Head, and not as simple as what we might think just being here. It's actually a lot of people and a lot of organisations that are involved in that process, so trying to get those outcomes. But it's exciting times, and we're going to have to get quite creative with how to solve the challenges.
Just on that, I'd like to congratulate Councillor Redmond for the work she's done on it, because I know that through this process we've had a lot of people within a lot of various organisations, some government and some private operators as well, that really sees our district as a forerunner for programs that could happen across the state. And so there's a lot of people with their eye firmly glancing on Circular to see where it all goes. So I think we're only going to have one chance of really hitting the nail on the head, and I just hope that happens. And I think if that does happen, our community is going to be well off for what happens. So congratulations on the work you're doing. Any questions on Chittick? If not, we'll go down one, which is Stanley Town Hall Special Committee. As I said last week, we had a really good meeting where we now have 11 people on a committee, and we've got a treasurer and a chairperson. That committee's going to take a little while to get going and understanding what their role is, but I'm pretty confident that will go pretty well. So we now have to move that we accept the committee and the office bearers, or is that in the motion that you've already done?
I think the motion will cover it, Mr. Mayor.
The motion will cover it?
Yeah.
Yep, as long as, Okay, as long as it covers it, that's fine.
Mr. Mayor, there was two I see in Stanley. They'll now be filled in because Councillor Kay's busy.
Yeah, I did say to them last year. Yes.
So they're going to have a special vehicle each over, what?
Especially if they get an escalator and get me upstairs. The time they meet and come round, I hate them.
Can I suggest we actually have a bit of a review of the committees?
Oh, yes.
We've got that as a...
We had that. I was supposed to have done that about 3 months ago, and I haven't got around to doing it, but I'm going to... Deputy Mayor talked to me about that only a week or two ago and reminded me, which I need to reminding sometimes. So, we do need to do it, and so I think we'll try and get that done for next meeting. And by that stage, we'll have a new member of council, and so we'll need to work that
Give it all to them.
So,
welcome.
A lot of it.
but we do. I think we will need probably shouldn't say this. We will need an experienced councillor on that for a while, because this committee has only got 2 former members on it. So we'll need somebody that knows a little bit how the committee's run to help that committee move forward. And I know that a couple of our staff is going to attend the first couple of meetings to help them as well, but they are virtually a new committee. Nothing further on that one. We'll go to Chris program. Anything else on that, Councillor Harris?
Mr. Mayor, I apologise to the community for being absent on this one. I buggered up my calendar. I thought it was a week later, so I nearly rocked up here Monday night. But fortunately, I looked at my calendar and I realised it was a week late, so I apologise for that. But as you can see in the information, there's some exciting things happening in the safety space on our roads.
That'd be good when he gets out, eh?
Mr. Mayor, I do take note of Council Sergeant Walters has made the comment in there about these people not understanding rules, and there was an issue that was raised that they've got involved, so that's a good thing.
The GM and myself had a meeting with Sergeant Walters yesterday, day before?
Yesterday.
and we're going to look at a couple of things, and one is the guy that is in charge of the Pacific Islanders to have a meeting with them, and there's 2 or 3 issues with different lots of people that actually come here. Some is just driving too fast, others is just not obeying the rules properly. And so, for different nationalities, there are different issues. And so, we're going to do some work with some of these people over the next little while. So, that when it comes up, so involved in that. She actually agreed that it is something that needs to be worked on. That obviously we are happy.
Can I make a suggestion there, Mr. Mayor? There are programs in sort of like a training way where you can do a self-paced sort of step-through training, which you can actually do online. And an example would be the Primary Employers Tasmania just did one called the Ag Card. It just goes through really basic stuff, and maybe there's something we can do like an induction program to driving in our weather. There might be something that can be funded to step people through that, which might be, especially at the moment, probably get the funding.
Yeah, and I know she was mentioning, Sergeant Michaels was mentioning at the airports they do have some information we were going to try to find whether we could get some of that information and work here as well.
What I've seen is pretty basic.
Yes.
I think you'd have to, as in like an acculturation process, you'd have to sort of teach a little bit of sort of the culture of driving here and things like with the weather and, you know,
yes,
what the expectations are a little bit, which should be a bit more immersive.
Thank you. Anything further on this? If not, we'll move to second lot of public questions. No public questions. So we'll matters listed for consideration in closed meeting. Is somebody prepared to move that?
So moved, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Blizzard. Councillor Woodward. Put the motion. All those in favour?
Aye.
Against? Carried. Closure of meeting. Somebody move that one. Councillor Ives Harris and Deputy Mayor. Put the motion. All those in favour?
Aye.
Against? Carried. We will now turn our screens off.